So, welcome back, everybody. And today is a real treat for me because I'm talking to, she feels like my mother of Spain here.
I'm not that old.
I mean, we are the same age, but you very much were my mother when I came to Spain. Today, I want to introduce Karen Carter, who, when I came to Spain 4 years ago, fate brought us together. She had a house that was available for rent so that me and Sam could live in. And we hit the floor running from then, and she just showed us the ways of the world in Spain, and housed us and supported us and met me for coffee and just brought me back down from the ceiling because I was in terror.
You weren't that bad. You took it in your stride.
I hid a lot from you, I think. So we were up in the hills in Coeen, and then Sam and I moved down to the coast, but we've still kept in touch. Still feel just as important as you did when I was there. But the reason for us coming on the show today is that you've had a hell of a 18 months, and it was very saddened to hear early 2023 that you were diagnosed with breast cancer. And very bravely, you've come on the show today to talk about your experience, talk about how it's affected you and your family. And now that you're coming through the end of the treatment journey, really what you've learnt from this process, and seeing you sitting here in front of me now. I had lunch with you before you started the chemo journey, and it's lovely to see you the other side of this. And I have to say, looking so well, even though you said before the show you're not feeling it. Anyway, welcome to the show, Karen.
Well, hi, Debs.
So maybe you could, for the listeners, tell us a bit about yourself, pre-cancer. Yeah, just give us an overview of you.
Gosh, well, I've been in Spain for 20 or so years. I live up in Coeen. I'm married, 2 children, 2 teenage children. One's 19 and the other is nearly 17. I write for a living. I'm a journalist by trade, although now it's more research based. I write about gambling. And yeah, that's about me in a nutshell.
I have the experience of knowing your family, and you're a music widow.
Yes, that is true. Yes,
With
yes. My
Pete
husband is in
band.
he's in his band New Tricks, and they're busy most weekends. So I'm either tagging along, carrying stuff, or sat at home waiting.
Their number one fan.
Yes,
by default.
The roadie.
So what about explaining to us the lead up to your diagnosis? Did you notice anything, and sort of how did you come across finding out?
The lead up was, pretty strange. I had a mammogram in June, which was part of the, over 50s club that you get invited to do an annual mammogram. So I went along for that, which was locally based, and that was all clear. In the August or September, I forget, I felt a lump under my armpit, nothing in the breast at all, no pain, no lumps that I could detect. As most of us do, we kind of self-examine. I wasn't regular about it, but I did, have a sort of prod and a poke around there every now and again, and nothing was untoward. So I found a lump under my breast, went to the doctor, and she said it's probably a lymphoma, like a fatty lump, and sent me away. It wasn't my usual doctor. It was a younger girl who was like a stand-in, so off I went. Googled that, as you do. I thought, okay, there's nothing to worry about. About a month later, it doubled its size. So I went back and saw my doctor, and she basically said, we'll refer you to the hospital. So from there, it was, the usual mammograms, scans, and they did a biopsy. And I got the official diagnosis in March, which seems a long period of time now looking back, but the process of the appointments it kind of takes a little while. So I got the diagnosis in March, and it's by that point it was stage 3, triple negative breast cancer, which means that it's not hormone left. Yeah, it means that it's not hormone led. Normally, well, I say normally, some breast cancers are hormone based, and they're one of three hormones that can spiral it into action. For want of a better word, a lot of women might get breast cancer after childbirth or during menopause, and they're often hormone led. I'd already gone through menopause, so that wasn't an issue. And this was triple negative, which means it's not associated to any hormones. It's also a very fast and aggressive cancer. And because it's not hormone led, they can't then treat it with hormone based treatments. So the advised treatment for that is chemotherapy with immune therapy, followed by, well, for me, because it was stage 3, they had to shrink it first before they could operate. So then,
And what does stage
followed
3
by an
mean?
operation. There's 4 stages. So, well, I think it starts at 0. I think there's 0, 1, and 2. 0 and 1 are quite basic stages in terms of they will often operate, and 2 as well, I believe, operate first because it's not grown excessively. 3 meant it was already spread, which had gone into the lymph nodes. Stage 4, that's then spread even further. That's metastasized into bones or liver. It can spread, or it has spread, and it's treatable, but it's not always curable. So that was a real stressful time, because at stage 3 you're kind of 1 digit away from stage 4. And so I had endless tests, scans on bones, chest, all sorts of tests to see if it had spread. And I think that period of time was the most stressful in all of this, because you're scared. You've had the diagnosis, you've heard the words, you've got a tumour, and it was a bit surreal, really. I was with my husband, and I said Mark then, didn't I? I was with my husband. I should knock that one out. I was with my husband, and we both sat there, and when we came out, I realised I hadn't asked any questions. It was just kind of like, okay. And the doctor, she said, we'll ring you in a week and we'll talk about treatment. And you kind of go, okay, thank you, and walk out. And I said to Pete on the way to the car, did you not ask any questions? He was like, no, did you? And he's like, why didn't you ask it? And it was just shock. You can't process it. I think that's how to describe it. It's just someone's just dumped something massive onto your lap, and you don't really know what to do with it. But yeah, so that was a stressful time in terms of, will it spread? Can we start treatment now to stop it spreading? And then there's the whole fear factor of, starting treatment. Chemotherapy, for me, I'd never really thought about it too much, but I was petrified of the treatment more than the actual illness, in a strange sense, because I'm one of those people, I don't really take medications. If I've got a headache, maybe now and again, but normally I avoid medications as much as I can. I was hardly ever ill. I didn't get coughs and colds. So you kind of go through life, sort of skipping through life thinking, I'm okay. And then suddenly you've got to have chemo. And that petrified me in how that would affect my health, other than doing what it was designed to do.
And knowing you were facing your worst nightmare of having to have the chemo, what did that leave you feeling, knowing that you're on this railroad? Did you feel you had a choice? If it was such a fear, how did you surrender to it? How did you get that around your head?
I think it was just a case of, it's this or the alternative, which is not doing treatment. And I'd looked into all sorts of alternative therapies, as soon as I found out. I started doing some research and looking into alternative therapies. What could I do to help it or stop it growing? I think for people, it's different in different situations. Mine was stage 3. I didn't feel I had anywhere else to go but to take what they offered me. Maybe if you're stage 1 and you want to look at alternative treatments, you've got a bit of time on your hands to see where that goes. But for me, it was after stage 3 is stage 4. and it was already in my lymph nodes, and that scared me, because once that's just your gateway. So it was more a case of getting my head around it, in that, okay, if this is the treatment that is available, they're telling me, we've researched this, we've done all this research on triple negative, this is what we advise, there are success rates with it. And I just knew, ultimately my thought was, my kids are too young for me to mess around in any way, so let's do it. Thousands of women do it, and men, for various types of cancer, not just breast cancer, obviously. So, what makes me so special that I can't cope with it either, So it was a case of let's crack on and do it. So they gave me 12 weekly sessions of chemo initially, and then that changed into 4 lots of 3 weekly sessions of chemo, which I finished on the very beginning of September. And then I had my operation 6 weeks later. Then I am now due to start radiotherapy. And then following radiotherapy, I have to have 6 months worth of immune therapy still, which is kind of like the icing on the cake, which was a little bit depressing, knowing I've still got 6 months worth of immune therapy to go every 3 weeks. But again, that's to stop recurrence. And when you're in the cycle of the treatment, you it becomes a little bit of normal life. You're in it, you're doing it. And so you can't stop until you get to that finish line, because if it's 6 months worth of immune therapy, it is. And I think by the time it's finished, I was hoping that I'd be done with treatment by the beginning of the new year, so I could go into 2025 and think, yes, done that. Okay, now let's concentrate on, getting my fitness and health back and so on. And now it looks like it's going to be another, 6 months down the line. But if that helps with preventing recurrence, then obviously you do it.
Yeah. So it's a 2-year physical process of the medication, and then what is after that?
Yeah.
The rebuilding.
I mean, after that, the rebuilding, it's and it's that is something I think that you just take day by day with that. It's I mean, I've already started in terms of, I have to do exercises for the shoulder, because the operation was here, so they've been working on the shoulder quite a lot in terms of returning mobility and strength, and that's all coming back. It all comes back. It's just a longer process. I'm a bit impatient, so you kind of come out of hospital and it's like, right, what can I do? Oh, I can't lift my arm. Okay. So, but a month later I can. And I'm back at the gym and I'm doing weights again, very small weights, because they tell you to just start slowly and build back up. But it's a rebuilding process. It's, you kind of feel like I felt like when I was diagnosed, I felt personally, I was probably, although I'm 53, I was at the peak of my health and fitness, strangely. I was doing more exercise at sort of 50 odd than I was doing in my 20s. Yeah. And I felt really fit and healthy. That's the strange thing, in that when you get something like this, it's like, well, hang on a minute, I feel great.
So there were no signs. If you look back, there were no signs other than fate landing you in a place where you found it, the body letting you know.
No. I mean, some people say they get tired, they feel tired, or like you say, there's certain signs that they get. I didn't detect any. And even the lump in the armpit at the time, because the doctor had said, oh, it's probably a lymphoma, blah, blah, blah. That didn't worry me either. I wasn't overly stressed about it. I didn't tick any of the cancer boxes, I felt. I didn't smoke. I don't smoke. Didn't drink a lot. Wasn't obese. I ate fairly healthily. It's kind of like, you think sometimes you're a little bit indispensable. I didn't think that I would get cancer. I don't think anybody does. I don't think you go around thinking, oh, I'm going to get cancer. It's some of those things that you kind of think it won't happen to you, which is
Have
a
you
little
have
bit.
you have you gained any meaning from it? Why do
Just
you think
that.
it landed in your lap?
Why? I don't know. I think we're all sent things to teach us things, and there's been various experiences through life that I have learned a lot from, in terms of past situations or things that have happened. I think initially when I was first diagnosed, I had the whole why me thing, the self-pity and the why me. And then you look at it and you think, well, why not? Why not? I'm not special. Thousands of women get it. I was listening to a podcast this morning at the gym of a lady athlete. She was an Olympian. I think she was a runner, and she got breast cancer at 33. She's the peak of her fitness, and she got breast cancer. Chris Hoy's prostate cancer. You can't ask why me, because it could be anybody. And through this process, doing a lot of research, yes, there are factors that can perhaps you can perhaps do to help prevent getting ill. But cancer's a strange one. It's not really self-inflicted. There are instances where, yes, you can sort of, bad diet and so on, but it doesn't seem to be led towards diet or anything in specific. If you get lung cancer and you smoke 40 a day, there's a reason. But for this, there was no reason, and the doctors can't give you reasons.
No, in my understanding of exploring how the body communicates to you, your body was trying to tell you something. It was letting you know because you hadn't, if there were any signs, you hadn't picked up. So this big lump appears as to say, hello, I'm here. And then that took you. So the body is a communicator. And I've also trying to understand that cancer is a scary word. It's something that we fear. It's something that we feel like it could take our life away from us, even if it is in this recovery period for you 2 years ago. But in 2 years, it's your life's been put on hold as you divert your path. But the cancer is there to tell us to heal. And if we can work with the cancer, then I wonder if there's so much that we can learn of how to heal ourselves on other levels. You are a fit lady, you are a slim lady, you eat well, you have a really positive attitude. As you said, well, what else can I do differently? So what do you think your body's trying to tell you underneath all that? It's wanting you to heal from something.
Yes, I think ultimately, maybe for me personally, it was telling me to slow down a little. I do things at great rate speed. I think, and it was also perhaps a response to some trauma in the past, which I hear a lot of as well from other people that I've spoken to, and I'm on a few forums, and there seems to be a connection with that. So, one lady, she'd lost her son, a teenage son, year previously. 6 months later, she gets cancer. But there seems to be a link with that. And I think with that, then it becomes not just a process of healing the cancer. It becomes a process of, like you said, healing yourself so that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a process of healing that as well.
So yes, your cancer is your way of bringing other stuff up to the surface that maybe's not been recognized, because your body was silent with the cancer before, and trauma can be buried so deeply, can't it? And we learn to park it, we learn to put it in a box and think that we've dealt with it. And the body is very clever at saying, well, no, there's a bit more to come up. You also said at the beginning of the show, this cancer journey, you're very impatient with the process. And you said, you
Yes.
like to go. So it's still trying to teach you, well, this will just go on
Yeah.
as long as it takes until you learn
Yes.
this, until you learn this lesson to slow down. And so in what way do you think that you went at a rate of knots? Do you think that's because of the trauma? Do you think that's related to the trauma?
No, I think that's been me all along, really. I don't think that's related to trauma. I think that's just my character, and I'm not sure if that will change significantly. It has taught me to stop and slow down in a lot of senses where I would be racing around and doing 20 things in one go. And now I'm a little bit more methodical. And also, you know what? That really doesn't matter, Kaz. It really doesn't matter today. We'll do it tomorrow, and so on. So it's definitely taught me that. And the patience thing, absolutely. I went into this, my way of dealing with it was to treat myself as a project. Cancer was my project. And that for me was the way I had to deal with it, to make it work and to cope with it. Because if I've got a project, I'll work through it. And then it becomes less, you almost kind of, in a lot of ways, I felt I've kind of distanced myself from myself. People talk about that surreal sort of feeling of you're looking down on yourself. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you're going through the treatments and you're not really there. It's kind of you looking in on somebody else doing the thing, having the chemo or going through the doctor's appointments, and it becomes a methodical way of dealing with the whole process without it becoming overwhelmingly emotional. I think sometimes, because if you stop and really analyze it, it's hard. I've spoken to quite a few people that have gone through the same process, and I think it might it tends to hit a lot of people at the end. I think when you're in it and you're dealing with it, you're going through it, you're working through it, you're doing that, you're busy with appointments, you're making your smoothies, you're doing all the things that you should be doing. I think when the process stops and they go, okay, you're done, then it might be a case of re-looking at yourself then, because then you're going to have to deal with the what now.
Your cancer becomes a relationship with you, don't you? You've had this friend, you could see it as an enemy, but for 2 years you two have been living a life together, and then when the cancer goes and all the hospital visits end, and then it's you're left with yourself, and it's a new self. It's, well, what do I do with this now?
And I understand from, like you say, again, talking to a lot of people, that is that's the more difficult side of it. Once you don't have the hospital appointments, I hate the hospital appointments. It's endless drives back and to Malaga, waiting around and so on. But you're there for a purpose. So it's doing some good, and you have to do it. So you get on with it. Once they stop, it's where's your backup? Where's the support network? If you want to ask a question, where is the doctor? And also, who's checking me? I feel like I'm going to become a neurotic and go check me every week. But, it then becomes, from what I understand, then you've got that different path to lead. Now, I'm not there yet. So, I'm still actively in treatment. So it's just a constant round of carrying on and dealing with the treatment. So, in 6 months' time, when it's finished, that'll be a whole different set of things to deal with, I think. And that'll be interesting.
Another podcast.
Yes, the follow-up.
So this journey has been very much about you, your recovery, the attention on you, but it's important to not forget that you are part of a family unit and your children are young enough to need you. Could you talk about how they received the news and how they've handled their mum being lost in this for a while?
Yeah, that it was a difficult conversation in the beginning. My daughter, she was away. She'd gone over to South Africa for a year, doing a volunteer work over there. So she wasn't in the country. And my son is 16. So I told my daughter over the phone, basically on a video call. I think in hindsight, or looking back, I played it down a lot. It was, this is fine. It's breast cancer. Thousands of women have it. Going to get treatment. By the time you come back, it'll be fine. So I played it down a little bit because she was away. I mean, her initial reaction was, well, I'll come home then and I'll look after you, which, no, my daughter would have lasted about a week anyway. And then she'd have forgotten or gone out with her friends. So it's like, no, you're absolutely fine. Stay where you are. This is all doable. Don't worry. And with my son, it was different. He's quite emotional, but he doesn't really, show it as most boys do. And he got really upset one day about a week after, and I heard him crying, and all you can do is say it. You just have to be totally positive. The doctors know what they're doing. There's treatments out there. It's all treatable. It's not going to get worse. It's just going to be a year of difficulty, and I don't know how it's going to be, but there's going to be days I'm not going to be well. There's going to be days I'm going to feel fine, and we'll just deal with it. But they've been really good. I think the fact that during chemo I wasn't awfully ill. I had off days, and I had days when I'd spend 48 hours in bed. I literally couldn't get up. That wasn't all the time. That was occasionally. So I wasn't, you hear some side effects that some women get, and that it's awful. They have it really bad. I count myself as one of the lucky ones in that I dealt with treatment reasonably well. Obviously the physical, the hair loss, and nausea from time to time, you can't always really hide. But I tried to make it fun. I mean, when I knew, I think at diagnosis, I had my hair cut very short. And then when I knew I was starting chemo, I had a buzz cut after about 2 weeks of starting chemo, knowing it was going to fall out. So I had a buzz cut, and I came home from the lady who cut my hair, my lovely hairdresser, and I told my son I was going to have this cut. I'd warned him I'm going to have my hair shaved off ready, so it's not so shocking. We'll do it in stages. And I came in, and he'd shaved his hair off as well, which still makes me emotional now. His friend had come round and buzzed his hair, and we just had a real giggle about it, because the state that his friend had done his hair, it was all lopsided and there was bits sticking out. It just made it fun. And I think ultimately, going through some of the symptoms that aren't, horrendously bad, hair loss was the least of my worries, strangely, because it'll grow back. My thing was I didn't want to feel ill. So if I wasn't ill, the children didn't see me being ill, life was fairly normal. And that's how we've kind of plodded along, I think.
And how have you noticed the children deal with the cancer over the 18 months here? Have you noticed how they're handling it in their own way?
Yeah, they we don't often talk about it. It's not really a topic of conversation that we have a lot. It's me saying, I'm going to the hospital on Wednesday, so when you come home from school, you'll have to do this. It's those sort of conversations, practical conversations. We have spoken occasionally about the type of treatment and how it makes me feel, but not a lot. And at each stage, whether it's the chemo or the operation or so on, I've spoken to them about it and explained it. But because I've always felt reasonably okay, I think that image of somebody being ill hasn't been an issue, like I say, so it's not really been something we've had to talk about. I know Luna told me, my daughter told me that she'd sort of got really upset at work the other week because somebody had said to her, this must have been really difficult for you watching your mum go through this. And she said, she came home and she said that. And she said, as soon as this lady said that, she burst into tears, because I think they carry on as much as I carry on. We get on, and we don't often stop and go, actually, Jesus, yes, she's been holding stuff in, because I don't know, what else do you do with it apart from we've got to get on,
Just as you said, when you come to the end of this journey, that's going to be your time to really reflect what you have gone through. Your children are not going through the physical stuff, but they're parking.
Mentally,
it's almost parking it with you, and maybe it'll be a familial healing when you stop your treatment. Everyone will have that chance to, because you're very strong. You've been very strong in the process, and sometimes that can send ripples around the family of, well, we all need to be strong here, when it's probably pretty tough a lot of the time.
It can be tough. I mean, I think I've tried not to, I didn't want it to affect their lives too much, any of my family's lives. Not that it's a solo journey, but in some ways it is. It is a very lonely path, because no one, I think, unless they've been through it, truly gets it. And I don't think, I didn't, certainly before. I've had, families, elderly grandparents with cancer. I've had a friend years ago who was very ill with cancer, where she ended up dying because it had metastasized. So I was involved with her. I didn't truly get it, and I don't think you do until you are. So therefore, you can't expect to totally understand it, even though they're living with it. So it's a very difficult thing. I've tried not to impact their lives too much, and it hasn't, I feel. They've all stepped up in terms of, on the days that I can't get out of bed, right, you're fending for yourselves and so on. But it hasn't impacted on their lives too much, I don't think. And for that, I'm quite thankful, because it's something I didn't want to put onto people. It's something that I feel that it's my not problem. It's my journey, for want of a better word. And everyone's along for the ride, but not totally. And I don't want them to be. I don't want them to, I didn't want my kids to see me in bed, not able to get up, or throwing up, or feeling ill, or I don't want them to see that, even though they're practically adults, because I don't want them to worry or stress. On the other hand, you can't protect them.
It's hard for you to accept the help from them or the care. So there's a protection there, a motherly.
There is, yes, because as a mum, you're the carer. It shouldn't be the other way around. And it's not a bad thing for them to do that at all. And they have, but it's also your role as a mum to, look after them. And so I think, but ultimately, I think that just kept me up and at it as well. It's the thing that keeps you going, that work, trying to keep a normal life for me was quite important, as much normality as possible.
And with Pete, your partner, how has he handled this journey?
Yeah. And I think he's been diamond. Would have been extremely difficult without that support. You're here, and we've got no other family here. My parents are in England, and my sister's in England, and so on. And as much as they offered to come over and help, it wouldn't have been the type of help I needed. That isn't what I want to say. I didn't require that level of help. I didn't need my mum to come over and nurse me. What I needed was somebody here that was just where I could say, can you drive me to the hospital today? I've got an appointment. I'd like someone to come with me. Or can you cook tea? Or can you do those sort of things. But I think primarily his role has just been my outlet. So on the days when mentally. It's just become a little bit too much, and you feel, that you can't. I remember one occasion, I just don't want to do this anymore. It's just making me so. I just don't want to do it. And the only person I felt I could say that to was him. I'm not going to say it to the children, and I'm not going to say it to friends, really. And so having that backup has just been really important.
I noticed that when you said about Luna, when someone at work mentioning, and how are you coping, that's when she was upset. When you talk about how this means to you, then I can see that it catches you. There is emotion underneath here that is overwhelming. I saw it caught you when you said how lonely this process is, and that there's times when you don't know how you're going to carry on. It's important to have that outlet, and he was able to give that to you.
Yeah, I think it is. And you go through those, I'm not as stoic as I come across sometimes. I have sat and utterly cried and just been so sad that I have to go through this. It made me angry at first. I was very angry, the why me situation, and then you start processing, and then you start sort of feeling sad about it or upset, and it's just a whole range of emotions. On the other hand, I've met some really good people through this, that I've connected with, whether because they've gone through the same journey or just through various things I've done, met them along the way, and we've just had a giggle, and we've laughed about all sorts of strange things that happen when you go through treatment. And that to me has been 90% of it. Just finding a little bit of light relief, for want of a better word, because otherwise it's just, it can be overwhelmingly depressing, really. And I don't want to go through a year of that. I don't want to waste a year being sad or upset. It is what it is, and it's all going to be fine.
One of the gifts that you gave us, the people that care about you and interested in your journey, is you said you're a writer and you have a blog called Two Steps Freelance, and you have a blog. There's 17 of them, called Cancer Sucks, and it was your way of involving us in your journey, but with so much humour. I've been rereading some of them today, and excuse my language, but pissing myself laughing. You have such a great way of making light of this really difficult journey. And what kick-started this blog for you was that you and the Princess of Wales, Catherine, both got diagnosed at the same time. Do you feel like you shared this journey with her?
Yeah, well, I mean, she looks a damn sight better than I do at the moment. I know that. No, it was just strange. She was diagnosed around about the same time, and I think she stopped her treatment. Her chemo finished around the same time I finished mine, although hers obviously is a different type of cancer. It resonated with me at the time, because being in the public spotlight, she had to announce it, and I kind of, I think any other time I'd have been like, oh, this is going on, but it just struck a chord that what she had to announce must have been remarkably difficult, because I know for me, telling people, I think that was really hard in the beginning, after the diagnosis. I remember phoning my mum on the way home from the hospital, because she knew I was going for the results. And I phoned her on the way home from the hospital, and I just couldn't really speak. And she asked me, are you upset? And I was like, yes, Mum. And it was an odd question, but I think because I'm quite buoyant normally, and I don't show that level of emotion normally, I think she was shocked because she'd heard the emotion in my voice. And I think with the phone call, she couldn't quite detect, couldn't I speak, because... And it just struck home that it was so difficult. And how do you say it? You drop the bombshell. Yes, I've had the results. It's cancer. And then where do you go from there? And it was like that with certain friends I had to tell, and it was a shocked response from them, like, my God, what? Totally out of the blue. Most people, actually, I think, nearly all people I didn't tell anybody I was going for these tests. So nobody knew that was even a possibility. I just, thought I'd go for the diagnosis. I thought it'd be nothing. It will be a fatty lump. It'd be absolutely fine. It wasn't until that happened. So it was a complete shock, not just for me, but for everybody else. So
was it hard to see their reactions?
Yeah, extremely difficult.
Yeah.
I think that's then sets you off, because you see them upset by your news.
It mirrors back what you're really feeling inside.
Yeah. Yes.
So if you could, coming through all this, cancer has taken 2 years of your life, or will have taken 2 years. It's taken your hair, it's taken your energy. What do you think you've gained from your cancer?
Insight. I think it's made me really aware of cancer. I don't think I was before, in the thing that I said before, that, you don't think it's going to happen to you. I'm not sure where to go with that. I feel like there is a lesson there, and there's something I can do with it. I have set up a cancer club locally, like a little support group. And we meet kind of once a month, and it started off just sort of 4 of us, and I've just opened it out a little bit. So now there's about 11. I've only just publicised it publicly to see if anyone wants to join. Didn't really know where it was going to go and whether it was worth doing. But I think there is a need for it. There's a lady who comes along who actually had breast cancer twice. She's been in the clear 9 years, but she says she still feels the need to talk about it, and it's easier to talk to people who have been through it because they get it. So, another friend, she's 3 years in the clear, and I've bonded with her really well over this process, because she's been my go-to in terms of, so when you did this, what did you do? How did you do that? Did you have this? And she still talks about it, and it's a kind of therapy, I think, just talking about it afterwards. And I think that's what, from talking to people, what is needed, not so much during, but certainly afterwards as well. I think more so afterwards. I think, like you say, once you've been given the clear, there's that worry that you'll always have that fear it will come back. Yeah. And that's the thing I most fear, is, dealing with it now. I can manage because I'm a project and I'm dealing with it, and there's treatment and so on. But there's always going to be that fear now that it could come back. And I think coping with that and dealing with that is perhaps something that's going to be perhaps useful to do via a support group, by talking to people. So I've set it up for me and for other people as well, and we'll just see where that one goes. But yeah, I just think, I don't know what I've gained from it. I've gained a lot of knowledge from it, and I want to do something with that. I'm just not sure what yet. Like I say, the blogs were just a kind of therapy for me, because I'm not great at talking to people. I'm better at writing things down. And if I could write things down and process it that way, then that was my way of dealing with it. Yes, my journal. Yeah. So whether I do something with that further down the line, I don't know. At the moment, life's really hectic in terms of trying to juggle lots of balls in terms of work, family, kids, hospital appointments, and so on. But yeah, maybe finding the time at some point.
There's a book within this, I think.
Yeah, I don't.
In this, even you just coming and doing the podcast today, and people listening, but it's going to, for the people who are going through it, for the people who fear it, just to know that you can survive it. What advice could you give people who, if they are listening, whether in the process or about to embark on it, what advice would you worked for you that you would like to offer in hindsight?
In hindsight, what, for someone who's starting treatment or?
Yes, on the lead up to your diagnosis or during the process? Or...
Gosh, I think that don't fear it. I mean, I did, absolutely. I think when I was diagnosed, I was, like I say, I was petrified of what was going to happen if it was treatable. I mean, Pete will tell you, I used to have nightmares that it had spread, that had already gone into my bones, and that was it. And, what would happen, and I'd die and my children would be left motherless and so on. I had all those thoughts, and I think once I started treatment, it, like you say, the fear never truly leaves, but you put it to one side, and it is treatable. Most cancers are treatable these days. The research they've done is incredible, and it's also, you can't let it take over your life, and you can't fear it and let it control you. A lot of women, when they find out, and the whole haircut thing is about taking control. I'm not going to let cancer get rid of my hair. I'm going to shave it off first. And that's a control thing that a lot of women do when they have, or men, when they have chemotherapy. But it's the same in all aspects. I think just taking control of your life and doing what you need to do, and not letting it take over. It's something you live with for a while, is the way I see it.
I like
I
the
don't see it
phrase
as
that
an enemy.
I like the phrase that you used about, I'm seeing this as a project. I've now been given this project and I'm going to do it to my best. I used the word, I've been given an assignment here, and I can either say that the dog chewed it up, or, put it in the bin, or I can give it my all and learn from it and do well from it. So that mindset gives you some control and power back, doesn't it? Rather than being done to you, is I'm going to use this for good here. Through this negative situation, I'm going to use it for good.
Yeah. Because otherwise it becomes too negative. So, it is about being positive, and not in a sort of corny way and going around sort of chanting, but it's just, like I say, I think for me personally, to keep life normal as possible, to focus on looking after myself. That was the other thing, in terms of, drinking lots of water and eating healthily, focusing on that. But it all gives you something to focus on to deal with it. And that's how I deal with it. I don't know if, other people deal with it in their own ways, and that's their way of getting through it. Everyone's different, aren't they? But getting up in the morning, doing a bit of exercise still, making lunches, doing some work, giving that. I mean, I was offered the opportunity of not working by my bosses, and I chose to continue. I took a slight drop in the amount that I do, but I chose to continue because I said, I need it. I need to focus on something other than the cancer. It's not going to be the sole focus of the next 12 months, 18 months. It's about nothing else there has to be a way of carrying on without that taking over. So if you can spend a few hours working, you're not thinking about the cancer. You think about it enough when you're in the hospitals and, quiet times. I'm not going to think about it all day, all night.
Well, you're still living your life, aren't you? And this keeps that routine going. And you, as you said, the children, you had to keep going for them, and at least that helps you feel like it's not taking over. You still have a life. You're still living.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see myself as, one of the lucky ones, like you say, because treatment has been not too severe. It's been manageable. The operation was successful. They've got it all. Radiotherapy, we'll see what that brings, and how that affects me. And then 6 months of immunotherapy. Well, bring it on, and let's see how that goes. it's not what I asked for in life. It wasn't on my list of things to do. But we're all sent curveballs, aren't we? So this is just a curveball, and it might have taken a year or so of my life in a certain aspect, but it hasn't stopped me doing everything I wanted to do. I've still been going out on weekends. I've still been going to Pete's gigs. I've still been exercising. Sometimes there's not as much as I could do, but I've still been going to the gym. I've still been going on walks. I've still been working. It's not going to take everything, and it didn't have the chance to either. I wasn't as ill. Some people get really sick with it, and it's a crying shame.
Your positivity could have helped, though, by not letting it and by carrying on, didn't give it the space to take over.
Maybe. It's different. Yeah, it's different treatments for everybody, and it's different results for everybody. But yes, it's the mindset helps, I think, definitely.
Well, you are an inspiration, and it's lovely to hear your story, to be there at the beginning and to hear it now, and to have followed your blogs. So for those of you who want to be able to catch up on her very humorous journey, you can see it online at her website, twostepsfreelance.com. But thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
You're very special in my life.
Likewise.
And I will be up into the hills very soon.
That'd be lovely.
Yeah.
When it stops raining.
Anyway, when it stops raining, I'll bring my canoe up the hill.
Yes, you'll need it at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And good luck for the rest of your journey.
Okay.